Welcome to another journey through time, where we gently explore the past and discover the stories that shape the world. As you listen, imagine yourself slipping into a place where time moves slowly, and the weight of history rests quietly in the corners. Our story today takes us to 1800s Japan, a place of isolation, rigid structure, and intense contrast between life and death. Picture yourself in the quiet of an ancient land where the sounds of daily life are soft and deliberate. The rustling of the wind through bamboo, the distant murmur of a flowing stream, and the muted voices of those living under strict rules that govern every moment. This journey will immerse you in the harsh and often unseen lives of prisoners, the bold revolutionaries who sought change, and the enigmatic rituals of Japan's elite. In today's video, we'll explore the often forgotten corners of Japan's Edo period, where survival meant discipline, restraint, and for many, enduring conditions that were far from kind. Through 4 distinct segments, we'll uncover the stories of the past with a steady, calming rhythm, guiding you softly through each one, allowing your mind to wander as it may. As we begin, let the quiet strength of the past envelop you. Take a deep breath and let's start the journey. Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a prisoner in 1800s Japan. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing outside a towering stone structure, its walls rising high above you, blocking out the sky. The air is thick with humidity, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying wood, a reminder of the passage of time. The sounds of the outside world, distant birds, the murmur of the wind through trees are muffled, swallowed by the oppressive silence of the prison grounds. Inside, the walls close in, a constant, unyielding reminder that freedom is not just a distant dream, but something that has been erased from your world. In 1800s Japan, the prison system was designed not just to punish, but to reform, though the methods were far from merciful. Picture yourself inside the prison. It's not a large space. The walls are low, just high enough to keep the outside world out, yet not high enough to keep the despair in. There's a chill that comes with the absence of sunlight, a cold that seeps into your bones. The bare wooden beams above your head creak with the movement of the wind, and you can almost feel the weight of the silence around you. It is a silence that presses down, heavy and constant, like an invisible hand. Your cell is small, perhaps no larger than a few tatami mats, enough space for you to sit, but not much more. There is no bed. The floor, worn smooth by years of use, feels hard against your back as you lie down on a thin mat of straw. The scent of the mat, faintly musty, fills the air as you close your eyes, trying to find some comfort. It's a constant struggle to relax, to forget the cold, the emptiness. The darkness is thick, a cloak that wraps itself around you as the night stretches on, and you wonder how much longer you can bear the isolation. For some, it's the silence that is most unbearable, the crushing, unrelenting quiet. Days stretch out like years, the passage of time measured only by the slow rise and fall of your chest, the rhythm of your breath. Each breath, each moment of stillness, feels like it will last forever. The hours are like heavy stones, pressing down on your spirit until even sleep seems distant and unreachable. There's no laughter, no voices to break the silence. The only sounds are the slow, regular footsteps of the guards pacing back and forth, their boots heavy against the stone floors. Life within these walls is not about comfort. It's about survival, about existing from one breath to the next. And yet, despite the stifling silence, there is a strange rhythm to prison life. You are not left entirely alone. At dawn, the gates creak open and you hear the soft shuffle of feet, prisoners like yourself forced into a line. The guards are ever watchful, their eyes cold and calculating as they lead you to your work. Labor is not just a punishment, it is a way of life here, and it is brutal. Imagine yourself moving in sync with the others, your body growing sore from the constant exertion. The tasks, seemingly endless, are meant to break you. Shoveling dirt, hauling stone, the rhythmic clinking of metal against stone as you work your hands raw. The sun barely touches the ground as you labor, and yet you are expected to push forward, to continue, even as your limbs beg for rest. You are often given only enough food to keep you alive. A bowl of rice, perhaps if you are fortunate, sometimes with a bit of fish, but there is rarely enough to fill your hunger. Your stomach growls, a constant reminder of how little there is to sustain you. Each grain of rice is a gift, each sip of water an oasis in a desert of deprivation. And yet, it is not the hunger or the cold that cuts the deepest, it is the punishment. A single misstep can lead to severe consequences. Imagine, if you will, the sound of bamboo cracking sharply across your back, the sting of pain so sudden, so unforgiving, that you barely have time to react. This is not a place for mistakes. There is no room for failure. The guards, silent but ever-present, watch your every move. Any sign of resistance is met with swift retribution. A look, a word, even the smallest deviation from the prescribed rules, and you are punished, not just physically, but mentally. The psychological strain is even greater than the physical one. You are stripped of your dignity, your sense of self, reduced to a mere number, a face in the crowd of prisoners. There is no individuality here, only the collective existence of the condemned. And yet, amid all this suffering, there are moments when the human spirit rebels. Some prisoners manage to defy the system in small, quiet ways. Perhaps they steal a moment to speak to a fellow prisoner, to pass on a secret of survival, a whisper of hope in the bleakness. Others find ways to resist, quietly, defiantly, in the hidden corners of their cells. These moments of rebellion, though rare, are a testament to the indomitable will of the human soul, a flicker of light in an otherwise dark world. But for most, it is not rebellion that defines their time in prison. It is endurance. The days pass slowly, one blending into the next. The rhythm of the seasons is lost on you, for you are no longer a part of the world outside these walls. Time becomes elastic, stretching and contracting as it pleases, leaving you to simply endure its passing. As the days turn to weeks, and weeks to months, you begin to lose track of time. The seasons, once so vivid, so alive, now fade into a haze. The outside world, once so full of promise, becomes a distant memory. The only certainty now is the endless repetition of labor, of punishment, and of silence. And yet, amid this desolation, there is a strange sort of peace. The external world no longer matters. The struggles of life beyond the prison walls seem distant and unimportant. In the quiet of your cell, you are left with nothing but yourself, your thoughts, and the slow, steady rhythm of your breath. It is this rhythm that carries you through. The days may pass slowly, but they pass nonetheless. And in the quiet, as you lie back, the weight of the day slowly lifts from your chest, and you drift ever so gently into the soft embrace of sleep. Segment 2. The story of Sakamoto Ryoma as the days slip quietly by. You are invited to journey forward in time to a different place, a different kind of struggle, where the quiet hum of daily life is interrupted by a revolutionary spirit. Imagine now the quiet of a bustling port city, where the sound of waves gently lapping against the shore mingles with the distant call of seagulls. The air smells of salt and brine, thick with the promise of change. This is the world of Sakamoto Ryoma, a man whose life, though tragically short, left an indelible mark on the course of Japan's history. Sakamoto Ryoma was born in 1836, a time when Japan's isolationist policies were beginning to show cracks. It was an era where the samurai class still held sway, but the winds of change were beginning to stir. Picture the calm, disciplined streets of Kyoto or the more bustling, merchant-filled streets of Edo, where the tension between tradition and transformation simmered beneath the surface. Japan was a nation at a crossroads, and Ryoma would be one of the figures who would help to push it toward a new, uncertain future. His early life was marked by the quietude of a samurai family. His father was a low-ranking samurai, a position that did not afford the family wealth or status, but still held enough honor to secure their place in society. From a young age, Ryoma was taught the ways of the sword, the art of Bushido, the way of the warrior. But there was a different fire in Ryoma's heart, one that was not satisfied with the old ways. Unlike many of his peers, he did not embrace the rigid traditions of the samurai. His mind was more attuned to the world beyond Japan's borders. Imagine Ryoma as a young man staring out over the water, contemplating the isolation that defined his nation. He saw the power of foreign nations, the strength of the West, and the threat they posed to Japan's centuries-old way of life. But he also saw opportunity. He saw that Japan's isolation was its greatest weakness, and he knew that change was coming, whether the old guard was ready for it or not. In the years that followed, Ryoma would become a central figure in Japan's struggle for modernization. He would study Western science and technology, learning from foreign experts and bringing back ideas that would shape the future of the nation. His vision was clear: Japan needed to open its doors to the world, to modernize, or risk being swallowed by the powers of the West. But Ryoma's journey was not just about ideas. It was about action, about making change happen in a world that was reluctant to change. He became a key figure in the movement to overthrow the Tokugawa shogunate, the ruling military regime that had governed Japan for over 250 years. The shogunate was deeply entrenched in its ways, resistant to change, and unwilling to embrace the reform that Ryoma believed was necessary for Japan's survival. Ryoma, however, was undeterred. He built alliances with powerful men, both samurai and merchants, and worked tirelessly to create a coalition that would challenge the existing order. Imagine the quiet intensity of Ryoma's meetings, the hushed voices of conspirators as they discussed plans in secret. There were risks at every turn, and yet Ryoma's courage never wavered. He had a vision for Japan, a vision of a nation that would not be ruled by feudal lords but would become a modern power on the world stage. But his journey would be fraught with danger. In the midst of his efforts, Ryoma made a bold move that would change the course of his life and the course of Japan's history. He brokered a secret alliance between the Choshu and Satsuma domains, two of the most powerful factions in Japan at the time. This alliance, known as the Satsuma-Choshu Alliance, was the key to toppling the Tokugawa regime. Through his diplomacy and strategic thinking, Ryoma was able to unite two of Japan's most powerful forces, despite their long-standing rivalry. It was a masterstroke of political maneuvering, one that would make Ryoma a hero to some, and a target to others. The quiet revolution he helped to set in motion gained momentum. As Ryoma's influence grew, so too did the resistance to his efforts. The Tokugawa shogunate, sensing the threat that Ryoma posed, sought to silence him. It was a tragic end to a life that had been so full of promise. In 1867, Ryoma was assassinated at the age of 31, his life cut short by those who feared the changes he represented. Imagine, for a moment, the sorrow of his death. A man who had worked so tirelessly to reshape Japan's future was gone, struck down in the prime of his life. But even in death, Ryoma's influence would not fade. His vision of a modernized Japan would live on, carried forward by those who had fought alongside him. The legacy of Sakamoto Ryoma is one of quiet revolution, of a man who dared to dream of a better Japan, a Japan that could stand alongside the great nations of the world. And though his life was short, his impact was profound. His death did not mark the end of his vision, but the beginning of a new era for Japan. In the years that followed, Japan would open its doors to the world, modernizing rapidly, and Ryoma's dream of a stronger, more unified nation would come to fruition.
Segment 3. The mystery of Japanese execution methods as we move forward through the layers of Japan's past. We come to a quieter, yet undeniably darker, aspect of its history. Imagine now the stillness of a room, heavy with the weight of inevitability. There is no light, save for the faintest glow of lanterns flickering on the far edges of the walls. The shadows here are long, stretching out like time itself, thick and somber. This is a space where lives were both given and taken, where death was not an isolated event, but rather a complex and intricate ritual with its own unique codes. The methods of execution in 1800s Japan were a strange blend of ritual, practicality, and punishment, each carrying deep cultural significance. As the oppressive walls of the prison loom large in your mind, so too does the grim reality of execution, a concept ingrained within the fabric of Japan's deeply hierarchical and rigid society. Death, it seems, was not something to be feared. It was something to be mastered, understood, and controlled. In the feudal system that dominated Japan for centuries, there was a profound respect for the formality of death. Imagine now the slow process by which an individual sentenced to death would be led to the place of execution, perhaps a quiet garden, a courtyard where nature and death seemed to coexist in a strange harmony. The footsteps of the condemned echo softly against the stone pathways, a steady rhythm like the ticking of a clock. The air is thick with silence, for death was no accident, but an inevitability that both prisoner and society understood. The method of execution most commonly employed was decapitation's swift, efficient process designed to end life as quickly as possible. But even this act was not simple. It was carried out with a deep sense of ritual, the sword chosen carefully, and the executioner often a respected figure. The sword itself was an extension of the samurai's soul, an object of reverence and power. It is said that the sword would be drawn, the blade gleaming in the dim light, and with a single stroke, life would be taken. The sound of the blade cutting through the air would be sharp, almost imperceptible, as the victim's head would fall swiftly, a symbol of both the power and finality of death. But death was not always so quick, nor was it always decapitation. There was another, far more complex form of execution, one steeped in cultural and philosophical significance. The practice of seppuku, or harakiri, was a form of ritual suicide, typically reserved for samurai. It was not just an act of despair, but a carefully constructed final statement, a way for one to preserve honor in the face of defeat or shame. Imagine a samurai, his mind made up, sitting in a dimly lit room, the weight of tradition pressing upon him. His sword, usually a long katana, would be placed before him, and in a quiet, deliberate motion, he would draw the blade across his own abdomen. It was said that the most skilled practitioners of this ritual would end their lives with great precision, following the prescribed method of cutting first horizontally and then vertically. The death was often slow, but it was deeply personal. This method, while deeply respectful in the eyes of many, also carried a chilling significance. It was a demonstration of control, of strength, and of an unyielding adherence to the samurai code of honor. The very act of self-inflicted death allowed one to maintain dignity, even in the face of overwhelming defeat. But not all executions were so intimate. For those of lower status, punishment could be far less dignified. Torture, although not common, was sometimes used to extract confessions or punish the most severe criminals. The physical toll was brutal, but the psychological toll of facing the unknown of living with the constant threat of death was perhaps even more harrowing. The condemned might spend their final days in a damp, windowless cell, the sounds of their own breathing the only comfort they had. Every hour was marked by the weight of knowing that death, in one form or another, was not just a possibility, but a certainty. And then there was the public nature of execution, where the process itself became an example to society. Imagine the somber procession leading up to a public execution. The condemned would be led through the streets, their faces often covered, the crowd silent, watching. The execution, while grim, served as a lesson to others, a reminder of the consequences of defying authority or breaking the law. The sense of public spectacle was not lost on the people who witnessed these executions. The act of death, so ritualized, so controlled, served to enforce the laws of the land and maintain the delicate balance of power. Yet, even in the face of such finality, there remained an air of mystery surrounding these executions. The precise methods, the intricacies of the rituals, and the symbolism behind them all carry with them a sense of reverence for death itself, even as it was a tool of punishment. Imagine the quiet reverence with which these rituals were carried out, the silent acknowledgement that death was not just an end. In this way, death was not merely a consequence, was a part of the fabric of society, something to be understood, respected, and feared. And for those who faced it, it was a test of the very essence of what it meant to live, to uphold one's honor, and to face the inevitable with unwavering strength. Segment 4. Life in Japanese elite society during the Edo period. As we approach the final segment of our journey, we shift the focus from the grim shadows of prisons and executions to the contrasting world of Japan's elite society during the Edo period. Imagine, for a moment, stepping out of the darkened, confining spaces of a prison cell and into the lush gardens of a samurai estate. The air here is different. It smells faintly of blooming flowers, of incense and polished wood. The sounds of nature are alive, but gentle soft birdsong, the rustling of leaves in the wind, the steady rhythm of a gardener tending to the bonsai trees. The world around you is calm, serene, and carefully controlled. In the Edo period, which spanned from the early 1600s to the mid-1800s, Japan was a society marked by strict hierarchy. At the top of this hierarchy stood the samurai, a class that held both power and privilege. Their lives were far removed from the hardships faced by the common people, and they lived in a world of beauty, order, and tradition, where their social status was a reflection of their devotion to the way of the warrior, Bushido. Imagine yourself now walking through the spacious hallways of a samurai mansion. The polished wood floors are cool underfoot, and the sliding doors, adorned with delicate paintings of cranes and flowers, open with a soft creak. The air is fragrant with the subtle scent of incense, filling the rooms with an atmosphere of calm. The samurai, though often hardened by their training and service, also cultivated an appreciation for the arts. They would spend hours contemplating poetry, studying calligraphy, or practicing the tea ceremony. This was a life of leisure and intellectual pursuit, balanced by the disciplined life of a warrior. In the samurai's world, status and reputation were everything. Their clothing, adorned with intricate patterns and colors, would reflect their rank and position. The kimono, crafted from the finest silks and often inlaid with subtle designs, would rustle softly as they moved. Their swords, particularly the katana, were not just weapons, they were symbols of their status, their honor, and their connection to the samurai code. The sword, sharp and gleaming, would be carefully cared for and maintained, not just as a tool of battle, but as an extension of the samurai's very soul. These men were not just warriors, but stewards of culture. They were entrusted with the role of protector, both of the land and of the traditions that defined their society. In times of peace, the samurai were called upon to uphold the law, to manage the land, and to participate in courtly affairs. Their days were often spent managing estates, advising rulers, and enforcing order. But despite their outward appearance of stability and control, the samurai were still bound by the strictest codes of conduct. The rhythm of their lives was dictated by Bushido, the way of the warrior, unbending, adherence to honor, duty, and loyalty. Imagine now that you are sitting with a samurai, perhaps in his garden. He speaks to you of the ways of his ancestors, of the importance of loyalty to one's lord, of the need for self-discipline and honor. But despite the serenity of this moment, you cannot forget the lives that are quietly controlled by such a system. The peasants who work the land beneath the samurai's gaze, the merchants who must navigate the rigid social structure to maintain their position. The samurai's life, though often privileged, was still framed by the same expectations of loyalty and self-sacrifice. In the Edo period, the samurai were not the only ones who played important roles in society. While they held the highest rank, a carefully defined class system ensured that everyone had their place. Beneath the samurai were the farmers, the artisans, and the merchants, the backbone of Japan's economy. These individuals, while not afforded the same privileges, lived lives marked by their own codes of conduct, and often struggled under the weight of their social status. Their lives, though simple, were often fraught with hardship. The seasons dictated their work, their crops, their livelihood. Imagine the feel of the earth between your fingers, the sweat of a hard day's labor beneath the unrelenting sun. But unlike the samurai, their lives were not cushioned by wealth. The rhythm of their days was dictated by the cycle of nature. of planting and harvesting, of survival. The merchants, though at the bottom of the social hierarchy, often found ways to accumulate wealth. They built vast empires through trade, controlling the flow of goods across Japan's shores. While they were bound by their rank, they could still wield influence, and in certain cases, they became more powerful than the samurai they once served. Yet, despite their wealth, the merchant's life was one of careful calculation, of navigating the complex systems of respect and obedience that underpinned Edo society. As you stand amidst the grandeur of the samurai, world surrounded by the beauty of their gardens, their fine clothing, and their quiet, measured lives, you are reminded of the delicate balance between their privilege and the hard lives of those beneath them. The samurai were the ruling class, but their position was precarious. They had to maintain their honor, their reputation, and their strength. Their status was not guaranteed, was earned through adherence to the code, through a lifelong commitment to the way of the warrior. And yet, despite their wealth and status, the samurai were not free from the rigid structure that governed their lives. The strictness of their code, the weight of their responsibilities, and the constant expectation of excellence shaped their daily existence. Even in their leisure, in their quiet moments of reflection and contemplation, the rhythm of their lives was dictated by duty. As you walk through this world, you are reminded of the stark contrasts that existed within Edo period Japan. On one hand, there was the quiet dignity of the samurai men, of honor, of tradition, of beauty. On the other, there were those who worked in silence, who labored beneath the heavy weight of the social hierarchy. And between them, a delicate balance was maintained, ensuring that Japan remained a society built on order, respect, and the slow, deliberate passage of time. Closing remarks and conclusion. As we come to the end of this journey through the past, we pause to reflect on the lives we explored those imprisoned by the harshness of Japan's prisons, the revolutionary spirit of Sakamoto Ryoma, the mysterious rituals of execution, and the contrasting worlds of Japan's elite samurai. In the silence of the prison, the weight of punishment was felt deeply. While the samurai lived in a world of order and beauty, yet one that was still bound by its own rigid codes. The contrast is stark, but it is through such contrasts that history becomes a living, breathing thing, a reminder of how much we, as a society, have endured and how far we've come. As you settle into the quiet, the weight of the past lingers softly. The days of isolation and hardship, of rebellion and tradition are distant now. But they are part of the rhythm of life each moment, adding to the cadence of history. And now, as the night settles in, the world outside is quiet, just as it was centuries ago. We leave behind the world of the samurai, the prisoners, and the rebels. returning to the calm of the present, where you can rest easy, knowing that the world has changed in ways both big and small. The past is a gentle reminder that time moves ever onward, and the rhythm of life continues, one quiet beat at a time.